What if I told you that one of the earliest signs of human culture involved eating other humans? That's not a horror movie plot. It's real history. The skull that proved humans were cannibals was found in Gough's cave, a deep, ancient site in Somerset, England. And it didn't just show that cannibalism happened. It revealed that this shocking practice was part of an organized ritual, a funerary tradition shared across Ice Age Europe. Today, we will explore how this single skull changed everything scientists believed about ancient humans, culture, and death. Stick around. This story gets dark, strange, and surprisingly meaningful. Gough's Cave. Gough's Cave is located in Cheddar Gorge, a limestone valley in England. Around 14,700 years ago, humans lived here. These weren't primitive creatures. They were part of the Magdalenian culture, and early modern humans were known as Cro-Magnons. When scientists dug up this cave, they found something shocking. Human bones with knife-like marks, signs of butchery. Long bones were cracked open for marrow, and other humans chewed some bones. But the most mysterious find? Human skulls that had been carefully shaped into bowls or cups. These weren't smashed open to eat the brain. They were cleaned, trimmed, and polished. This wasn't just about food. It was ritual. Using modern 3D scanning, scientists found cut marks on the lips, cheeks, and around the eyes, showing that flesh was carefully removed. The skulls were then shaped into smooth, even-edged cups. These were not acts of desperation. They were deliberate and skillful. What the bones reveal. So, were these people just starving and trying to survive? Actually, no. In the same cave, scientists found many animal bones like horses, deer, and hares, all full of rich meat. The people of Gough's cave had plenty of food. That's why experts believe the cannibalism here was not about survival. It was a funeral practice, a way of honoring the dead, just like modern burials, cremations, or even mummifications. This could have been their way of remembering and respecting loved ones. Some bones were engraved with zigzag patterns, even after being chewed. One forearm bone was cleaned, chewed, engraved, and then broken for marrow. Scientists believe this detailed process had symbolic meaning. It was not an accident. Was this widespread? Cannibalism across Europe. What happened at Gough's cave wasn't a one-time thing. Across Europe, at least 13 other sites from the same period show signs of cannibalism. These were all part of the Magdalenian culture, found in France, Belgium, and now Britain. Meanwhile, a different group called the Epigravetians, living in southern and eastern Europe, buried their dead in more traditional ways, with grave goods like tools and beads. This tells scientists that cannibalism wasn't just random, it was cultural. Some groups used it as part of their funeral traditions, while others used burials, and it didn't last forever. Around the end of the Paleolithic era, cannibalistic funerals stopped and were replaced by burials. But why? That leads us to something even more fascinating: genetic clues. Who were these people? Scientists found something surprising when they studied the DNA from these ancient bones. The people who practiced ritual cannibalism, like those at Gough's cave, belonged to a genetic group called Goyet Q2. Meanwhile, those who buried their dead were part of a different group called Villabruna. This tells us something big. The change from skull cups to burials didn't just happen because of new ideas. It happened because new people came in and replaced the old ones. As the climate warmed and the Ice Age ended, these new groups moved into northwestern Europe. They brought new tools, rituals, and a new way of treating the dead. So, what happened to the Magdalenian people? It looks like their culture and their rituals slowly disappeared. The story of Gough's cave may be one of the last echoes of a vanishing way of life. How the skull cups were made. It wasn't quick, it wasn't easy. It was done with incredible care. First, the scalp, face, and all soft tissues were removed. Scientists found cut marks from stone tools on the lips, cheeks, tongue, and around the eyes. This process was slow and deliberate. The lower jaw and base of the skull were then carefully broken off. The top part of the skull, called the cranial vault, was shaped and polished. The edges were made smooth, like a real bowl, and smashing the skull to get to the brain would have been faster and easier. But they didn't do that. They chose a more challenging path, one that shows purpose and planning. This was not about eating. It was about creating an object, maybe one with deep symbolic value. Similar skull cups have been found at sites in France, such as Historic, and Le Placard. This shows that this tradition was not limited to one place, but spread across Magdalenian Europe. Global connections, skull cups through history. What's even more fascinating is that Gough's cave is not the only place in history where human skulls were used as cups. Skull cups have been found in ancient Tibet and are used in Buddhist rituals to hold wine or dough as offerings. The Scythians, a warrior group from Central Asia, were said to drink from the skulls of their enemies, something even ancient writers like Herodotus described. Even in Peru, 1,500 years ago, skull cups were made by polishing, defleshing, and shaping bones, just like at Gough's cave. And believe it or not, in 19th century Australia, some Aboriginal groups also use skulls in rituals. This shows that skull cups are not just rare historical accidents. They are part of a wider pattern, a human way of making meaning out of death. What did it mean to them? But why do this? Why turn the skull of a loved one, or possibly an enemy, into a cup? That's the big mystery. Some scientists think it was about ancestor worship, keeping part of the dead close, turning their remains into a valid object. Others think it might have been a way to honor the spirit of the dead, or even absorb their strength. It could also have been a status symbol, showing the skill of the person who made it. Or maybe, just maybe, it was a way to face death, to turn fear into ritual, loss into meaning. We may never know exactly what the Magdalenian people thought, but every cut mark, every polished edge gives us a clue. Why cannibalism ended? So, what happened? Why did these ancient people stop making skull cups? Around 13,000 years ago, Europe began to change. A new group of people, the Epigravidians, started spreading across the continent. These people were genetically different, and their traditions were too. Instead of turning skulls into cups, they buried their dead. And they didn't just bury them, they added grave goods, like tools, jewelry, and decorations. This wasn't just a small change. It was a cultural shift, a new way of thinking about death, family, and the afterlife. As the Epigravidian people moved in, the Magdalenian rituals slowly disappeared. Scientists call this a case of population replacement. One group didn't just change its behavior, it was replaced by another group with completely different beliefs and practices. It's a powerful reminder that human history is also the story of change. Cultures rise and fall, ideas spread or disappear, and sometimes the only clues we have are bones, tools, and carefully shaped skulls. The skill and time behind cannibalistic practices. What makes the Gough's cave discovery even more astonishing is the level of craftsmanship involved. Creating a skull cup wasn't quick or crude. It took time, effort, and skill. Archaeologists found precise cut marks that show soft tissues were carefully removed. The edges of the skulls were deliberately smoothed, likely to prevent injury during use. This wasn't just about consumption, it was about transformation. Turning a human skull into a vessel required physical tools and knowledge of human anatomy and controlled techniques. This level of detail proves that these actions were planned and practiced, not done in panic or desperation. It suggests a deeper, thoughtful process, perhaps taught and passed down through generations. Humanity's dark side. When we hear the word cannibalism, we think of horror movies or desperate survival. But the people at Gough's cave weren't monsters. They were early humans, just like us. They had art, they had tools, they lived in family groups, and they had complex beliefs about what happens after death. Turning skulls into cups might seem shocking now, but for them, it may have been a way to honor their dead or stay connected to lost loved ones. Across the world, different cultures have handled death in different ways. Some burn their dead, others bury them, some mummify. It's all part of the same question. What do we do with the people we lose? The discovery of skull cups in Gough's cave changes everything we thought we knew about prehistoric humans. It shows that even 14,700 years ago, people were performing sophisticated funerary rituals. They weren't just surviving, they were thinking, feeling, and making choices based on beliefs, emotions, and culture. Yes, this chapter of human history is dark, but it's also deeply human, because in the end, studying these skull cups isn't about judging the past. It's about understanding it, and maybe seeing a little bit of ourselves in the people who came before us. If you found this story fascinating, stay tuned for more episodes where we uncover the strange, surprising, and sometimes unsettling truths of our ancient ancestors. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss a discovery.